I asked for a special forum meeting today because there are a number of issues that are before us that I think require us to focus our attention as a group, and all of us that are gathered here today certainly have a large stake and investment in what's happening around us and to us. And so that I've asked a few people to join us today on the panel so that they can begin to help explain some of the things that are transpiring, debate, focus, attention, and that is the purpose of why we've asked you here today. You'll hear that we have some very important news concerning the first active steps of our members of our industry towards ensuing the protection of music copyrights in this new age. One such step concerns a milestone licensing agreement. Another involves the filing this past Monday of a landmark lawsuit. Before proceeding on these issues, I'd like to introduce our panel. We have Mr. Tom Bush on my immediate right. Tom Bush is CEO and founder of OmniBox Incorporated. In 1982, Tom, a former record producer, audio engineer, began devoting himself to the research and development of OmniBox system. As a musician, composer, and entrepreneur, he foresaw the convergence of cable television, recording, computer, and shop and home industries with his concept for OmniBox and its satellite jukebox service. In a decade-long process of development, Tom has received significant patents in electronic distribution of music and computer software and electronic transaction processing. Tom Bush. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, many of you know Mr. George David Weiss, composer, lyricist, and president of the Songwriters Guild of America. And George's best-known songs are Can't Help Falling in Love, What a Wonderful World, Lullaby of Birdland, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and many, 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 many more. In addition to his creative contributions to the music industry, George, on behalf of SGAA, the Songwriters Guild of America, actively campaigns for songwriters and the protection of their copyrights. Mr. Ralph Peer is obviously a well-known gentleman in our industry internationally and both nationally. Mr. Ralph Peer II. Mr. Peer is the chairman of Peer Music, a music publishing and production firm operating 23 countries. Peer Music's extensive repertoire encompasses concert, Latin, country fields, as well as pop music. Ralph is an international vice president and director of NMPA and HFA, a publisher director of ASCAP, and a lifetime director of the Country Music Association. He's also a director of MCPS, the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society, and IFPMP, the International Federation of Popular Music Publishers. I'm sure there are more things, but we've run out of space, you know? We appreciate him particularly being here today. He's had a bad cold, and I'm happy to see he's here, but I hope we're not straining his voice and his will too much. But we're very pleased that he's here. I would like to point out, before we go too much further, we have a lot of distinguished people here today, and I really do appreciate the effort in them coming here. But one in particular I'd just like to point out, because he is a friend to all of us, I think, and it is his birthday, Mr. Morton Gould. Today we stand on the threshold of a revolutionary era in the communications. Economic experts are quick to compare the current construction of the U.S. information superhighway to the building of the great American highway system in the 1950s. Investment in the new communications infrastructure may in fact surpass inflation-adjusted expenditures incurred in building and paving these interstate and local roads decades ago, a truly impressive statistic. According to Businessweek magazine, this level of investment may literally drive the U.S. economy over the next 20 years. Some of you may have read in the business section of the Sunday Times a few weeks ago the good news that the United States is leading the world in the establishment of interactive computer networks. A vast and expanding infrastructure has developed to connect individual computer owners to huge libraries of information, and to one another. Specialized databases spring up all around the country, have joined together in a cooperative effort to improve public access known as Internet. This network may be visualized as a system of more remote roads that are accessible from the main highway for those with specialized information needs. Access to the superhighway likely will not be limited by cables or wire either. Microwave, digital broadcasting technology may make interactive access to a gigantic storehouse of information and communication with other network users available at any time to any place. The dizzying pace of technological advancement, coupled with a fury of corporate merger activity, has created enormous interest and competition in this area. Major companies have perceived the need to establish interconnected divisions extending to all aspects and types of software, creation and distribution, and as a prerequisite to becoming a viable force in the marketplace, leading to enormous investments and expansion. The advancing merger of consumer computer technology with the communications media, including cable and broadcast television, telephone services, and other entertainment sources, has clearly created limitless possibilities for future interactive businesses and entertainment networks. Our purpose today, however, is not to discuss which or how many of these networks will be successful. My concern is to focus on the information which the superhighway will carry, for the simplest reason that some of those bits and bytes of data represent musical compositions in which our community of creators and music publishers has a very, very large investment. Intellectual property, including music today, comprise 5.6% of the U.S. gross national product and is one of our nation's only growing export categories. While the growth of the new information superhighway is important to the American economy, so is the safeguarding of intellectual property. It must be remembered that the superhighway is only as valuable as the information it carries. If the system itself destroys the value of copyrighted works by permitting rampant, unauthorized uses, the incentives which support creativity will disappear, and with them, new American works of artistic and commercial value. George David Weiss will highlight some of the dangers in his comments later. The challenge to songwriters and music publishers, therefore, is to ensure the protection of copyright without inhibiting the advance of technology. NMPA has studied these goals from three different viewpoints: the legislative view, the litigation view, and a licensing view. I'd like to take a moment to examine briefly all three with you. Let's take the legislative view first. Returning to our superhighway analogy, the principle which copyright owners need to be most concerned with is the ability to police the road. In order to monitor the electronic highway, the first step is to affix license plates or identification tags, if you will, to information traveling on it. The Clinton administration has recently established the National Information Infrastructure Task Force, NII, to assist in strengthening the growth potential of the superhighway. In solicited comments, which will be delivered by NMPA to the task force on December 10th, we'll offer our assistance in helping to develop a system of identification for copyrighted works, which will make monitoring of the new works a manageable and an accurate process. That way, rules can be fashioned to eliminate chaos, piracy on this electronic highway, increasing rather than stifling the growth. As many of you are aware, legislation is currently pending in Congress which may establish a so-called digital performance right. Some groups have already expressed to the NII, the task force, that it remains unclear as to whether any new copyright legislation is necessary in light of the current protections and that further study is required. NMPA is sympathetic to that view. In regard to the pending legislation itself, As I testified before the House and Senate Copyright Subcommittee and the World Intellectual Property Organization, NMPA remains concerned that the vitality of existing rights of reproduction and distribution and the mechanical license income generated by the exercise of those rights be preserved. We believe, as well as the steps must be taken to ensure that public performance or the communication rights of music publishers and songwriters are not prejudiced by any potential new or expanded right in sound recordings. To preserve a balance and fairness among all interests in our industry, it's also essential that the right in sound recordings not exceed the scope and nature of the musical works. It is beyond question that the advent of the new technology often fuels the need to update standards of protection. But it must be remembered that technologies enabling new uses of sound recordings will in every instance affect rights in the underlying musical work. For this reason, NMPA urges that proposal for the new and expanded rights for record manufacturers be carefully examined to ensure that they do not prejudice or conflict with the exercise of rights in musical works. I intend to repeat those important caveats at the working group meeting on the House bill scheduled by Chairman Bill Hughes of New Jersey in the near future. Litigation is another tool available to individual music publishers and songwriters to prevent the erosion of the value of their intellectual property by the irresponsible implementation of new technologies without adequate safeguards. That danger of erosion has certainly been highlighted by the rapid advancing merger of communications media with the computer world. With that in mind, on Monday of this week, Frank Music Corporation, on behalf of itself and over 140 other music publisher principals of the Harry Fox Agency, Inc., HFA, filed a class action suit in the federal court against the giant online computer service network CompuServe Incorporated. The complaint alleges copyright infringement of Frank Music's copyrighted musical composition, Unchained Melody, written by Alex North and Hyatt Zarrett, and of more than 500 musical works owned by other HFA principals. The publishers are seeking redress for the unauthorized reproduction and distribution of their copyrighted musical compositions by CompuServe through its bulletin board services, which permits subscribers to upload, download music into and out of CompuServe's electronic bulletin board system without the authorization of copyright owners. The complaint charges that CompuServe permits, facilitates, and participates in such acts of copyright infringement, which are allegedly to be willful and intentional on the part of CompuServe, and asks the court to enjoin further infringing activities and to award damages. HFA, NMPA's licensing subsidiary, which provides music licensing and royalty collection service to over 12,000 music publisher principals, including Frank Music Corporation, and all the members of the class in this suit, is financially supporting the action. Litigation is not the course of action which members of the class would have preferred. HFA sent letters to CompuServe on behalf of its publisher principals, originally seeking to establish a dialogue concerning the protection of musical works on CompuServe's system. After initial letter failed to elicit a meaningful response, a cease and desist warning was sent. The letter demanded was apparently ignored, leaving the publishers no choice but to act in order to preserve their rights. Obviously, this action exposes CompuServe to millions of dollars in damages and many willful copyright infringement claims. Other companies engaged in similar activities are equally likely to elicit a similar response from music publishers, owners left with no choice but to defend their rights in court. This may well be the first major collision, so to speak, on the segment of the new superhighway. HFA Special Counsel Alan Shulman of the New York law firm Silverman Shulman PC filed the landmark action against CompuServe on behalf of the class and will be available to answer some questions later.